Hi,
Namaste. Hello,
hi
this is
Shri.
Srinivasa, and we have our friend, guide, I would say mentor, coach, and a good Samaritan, Prabhu, here with us. Today, welcome, Prabhu, to our show.
Thank you. Thanks, Shri, for inviting me to this show to have a discussion. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, so basically, we were just chatting offline about itsdiff leadership series, and today we are going to present the meeting etiquette, particularly the virtual meeting etiquette here. As you know, our focus is to serve the community, and as leaders of the community, it's very important for us on how we conduct ourselves, how we present ourselves in a meeting which is in the office setup or in the remote setup, and especially with the pandemic is changing the way we think, we work, we operate. It's super important for us to cope up and adapt ourselves to the environment and provide an environment which is easier for the guest, for the host, for the coordinator, and whatnot. In simple words, I would say that it's going to be for the, let's say, project manager, a team member, for the meeting facilitator, or for the person who is organizing the meeting, the person who's doing the marketing and publicity of the meeting, and the person who is not an active participant but happen to be there getting some, what you can say, listening to get some benefit because they would be participating in the chat discussions. So today, it's a great pleasure and honor. I welcome Mr. Prabhu Venkatesh Subramanian to join the itsdiff show, and this is Srinivasa. So before we get too far in reading out the detailed agenda, I just wanted to read a bit about Mr. Prabhu. So he's
Thank you.
here. It is here are the details, and he's a BS and an MBA from Coimbatore. He's a resident of California for the last 22 years. Over 30 years of worldwide experience in business development, channel marketing, product marketing, recruiting, and mentoring in software and consulting industry. Is an active volunteer of the nonprofit organization Sankara I Foundation and a board member of many other nonprofit organizations. Advisor and mentor to startups, and is a big proponent of positive thinking, which we all need in this COVID-19 situation, and good karma activities. Very familiar with social media marketing for business and philanthropic activities. In short, is a good friend, guide, coach. I always look out for the other person, and we know each other for a couple of years now. And I just wanted to a little bit brief about me as well. I mean, not just blowing my own trumpet, but I just wanted to share for the benefit of people who have joined us here. And thanks. I hope you had a great day. And for those of you watching this program globally, have a nice day as well. So I'm an MBA from Laila College, Liba, from India, and of course graduated from Jain College in Minambakam. And of course, recently I'm a graduate from Harvard Business School on the Harvard Business Analytics program on digital innovation, product marketing, and see how we can continue to create value for the customers and generate and capture value. And also a PMP, certified from PMI, and ISACA, which is the certified in governance in enterprise IT and information systems assessment as well, which is CISA. And of course, served president of Bharati Tamil Sangam, which is a non-profit organization here, and also founded itsdiff. I think not. I think it's 15 years ago, as to serve the community as a news, youth, and music. And so that's a little bit about me, and I'm very thrilled to share the information that I learned. So I'm very humble in front of you to share my experience, my learning, and I thought it will be much better to really make it an interesting discussion. Why not we have somebody who's in similar wavelength and frequency and wanted to serve the community, and that is none else than Prabhu. Once again, please give a round of applause for Prabhu for joining for the very first time on its show. Welcome, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me in the show, Sri, and it gives me a great pleasure, especially with the pandemic situation, and we have work as well as a lot of our personal time spent before our laptops and iPads, basically both entertainment as well as professional things happening across geographies uh, through virtual meetings and streaming and virtual streaming. This topic and some of the basic things which we have to take care to make sure as a listener, as a participant, as well as a meeting coordinator or as a host organization,
Right.
what all we need to go through and how we have to get prepared and conduct the show. And thanks once again for choosing this topic and having me in the show.
Yeah, it's again like whatever we learned and whatever we read, and some of the Harvard Business Review or the Forbes magazine or the Computer World. And if you see, there are lots of even LinkedIn and things like that. So some of this information may be publicly, not maybe, it's already publicly available, and maybe you are aware of this. But again, the goal is to just bring it all together. And we would like to get your thoughts as well, dear listeners. So you can feel free to comment. If you are watching from whichever part of the world, you can just say where are you watching this and hearing this show from. That will really encourage us. Thank you so much. So to start with, so Prabhu, let's talk through the first segment of our in the agenda. As an individual who have been invited to a meeting, okay, so what do you think? Why don't you get us started with that so that I can join and provide my thoughts as well? As an individual person, you have been invited to this meeting, right? So let's focus on that first.
Yes, I have a few thoughts on that. Like we all are aware of product branding as well as a corporate branding, product positioning, all these concepts we have heard or we have been exposed to from even school days or we are studying in college. But many of us are not aware that each of us have a personal brand also to carry along, and this is very important, and especially when we are attending a virtual meeting, whether it is work related or like a show like this, we have to as an individual get prepared and make sure we are presentable, and we groom ourselves properly so that we are pleasant to the listeners and the people who are watching the show, so that we are in line with the theme and also the brand of the show we are being part of, so that it makes clear sense. And when we are working on a official or a professional meeting, then we might be in the meeting the leadership team as well as our team members. So there, depending on the role we play, so we have to clearly communicate what we stand for, and otherwise whatever we might be telling or trying to communicate, the distraction will be on how we are presenting ourselves. So
okay, yeah,
plays an important role.
that's very importantly. I mean, that's a very important point, because one thing is like there's no change whether it's virtual or as if you're in your office. You need to make sure the dress code, or what you're alluding to is basically you need to have the proper dress code, right? And of course, as if you're in the conference room with a bunch of your colleagues, your manager and subordinates. The second thing that comes to my mind is here, it's so easy right now. In a phone you can attend this meeting. So
Yes.
to me, it's so easy, and I've seen as a mark of respect to the other person, if you have a laptop and you have the connectivity, I would like you to conduct yourself and then make sure that you are fully focused on the meeting. And what I've seen people, this is something I've learned, Prabhu. One thing is not necessarily here in the earlier before COVID-19. when I've seen in a couple of with my colleagues, they always turn the video on. No matter what, nobody requests it, they always turn the video on. It really, really touched me because there's a little bit of personableness there. Hey, I care for you. I'm looking at you. I'm talking to you, and also it really helps build relationships, to my knowledge. So that means if that's really working well, you need to make sure that we, as a good etiquette, number one, I would say you are presentable, and second thing is you turn the video on, and you are paying attention to, and not necessarily. The third point is the multitasking. It's very easy to multitask. Even in a conference, you see there are people who just simply look at a lot of things, look at their phone, and then writing something, and they say, "What did you say? What did you say now?" Again, and it's so dangerous right now, especially you're not on your video, right? You don't know who is listening, who's not listening, and the guy is just presenting some important plan and project management and execution and whatnot, and then we are not paying attention to this, and then it is not an efficient way in which a meeting is done.
Yes, that's right.
Right? Yeah.
Definitely. I very much agree to what you mentioned. What I have heard, some of my colleagues and some people from the industry who always emphasize, hey, I have video meetings rather than just an audio meeting, because it gives, as you mentioned, the connect with the team, and also it sort of, when you one more thing is it gives the what the other person is trying to say. The body language is a very important aspect in the communication, and once you have the video on, so you cannot hide behind some expression, whether you like or dislike an opinion. So because in most of the meetings, you don't need to you can agree to disagree. So all those things will be more visible and communicative. You'll be more communicative when the video is on, and it will carry it through. You'll be able to carry it through.
Yeah, I think let's also ask our listeners and our viewers if you have any better thoughts and ideas, that some technique that you are following. Please do share it with us. All you need to do is just punch your comment and then share it with us. So the point here is one thing I've seen: have a good microphone. And of course, we're not saying just go and buy a big product of $250 or $300. Just make sure that it all works. So that means even if you're using a phone, just make sure you're wearing a headset. And most importantly, try to take this call from a location where it is not with a lot of background noise. So that's the last thing that I hear is wanted to hear is that, because with everybody at home, husband, wife, family, kids, right, parents, especially within that family setup, whoever is there at home, and everybody is busy on multiple conference calls. Kids have got virtual learning from their school education and everything, right? And your better half is also busy, right? And of course, people will be working in the kitchen, right? So you got to be make sure you are in a place where you just it's less noisy. And in case there are some situations where you are in a very confined space, make sure you mute yourself when you're not talking. That's the thing, right? When that's a tendency for people not to do that always. Don't think it's an advice, but I think I've seen it. Really, it's so much better when you're not talking. Please mute yourself, and make sure to unmute yourself when you're talking.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that's a thing that comes to my mind. So anything else as an individual member, of course, as an etiquette, should attend the meeting on time and be attentive all the time, and focus on the topic, take some notes. And one thing I'm interested is, suppose if your connectivity, like, because the Wi-Fi connections are terrible in some cases. So it's very tendency when kids are on summer vacation, they tend to watch videos which we cannot stop, right? So you got to make sure, just check it out whether how is the video relay is coming in, especially your not the TV video, I'm internet video. I'm talking about the virtual meeting.
Okay.
So
Yes.
make sure if you are not speaking, you can possibly. I've heard somebody saying that you can even turn off your video when you're not speaking. So maybe this is more for the meeting coordinator. If the meeting coordinator's responsibility, maybe it's a good segue, Prabhu. When a meeting coordinator, you got to make sure whoever is speaking, just focus on them so that the entire attention is on that person, rather than have the 15 people who are there on the call. So just have everybody's video. You don't even know who's speaking, because there are certain views in the tools where you can just simply switch to the speaker view.
Yeah,
Not
that's called as the spotlight.
exactly the
Yeah,
spotlight.
speaker spotlight.
Yeah, so that way you focus on what the person is saying, rather than you looking at everybody, because it's too distracting.
Yeah,
Right?
I have a suggestion there. Normally, it is efficiently done if there is a technology team or somebody helping you who is going to moderate this whole technology part of it, uh, rather than the person who is hosting the show himself is doing, because the normally the person who is hosting the show or hosting the meeting, if you are involving multiple people and they are from different geographies, he has got a couple of other things in his mind. He has an agenda that he has to follow, and he has a lot of guidelines, and he has to maintain the timing. So he might lose track of, hey, am I putting the spotlight on the right person? Am I giving is the all the videos consuming the more bandwidth,
Mhm.
depending on what tool you use? So it's always a good suggestion to have a third person or a separate technology person who is managing your this video or audio coordination other than you.
Yeah, so that means, in other words, you are a facilitator, you are a moderator for the meeting. If you're
Mhm,
especially having, now I've seen a lot of, for example, doctors.
mhm.
By the way, by the way, we thank all the doctors and people who are in the front line serving the community. And actually, there is we wanted to show our mark of respect to them. Thank you very much for that. So what we are saying is, like, we need to have a moderator and facilitator focus on the content, and just seamlessly moving from one person to the other person. And there is
Yeah,
an administration, meaning an admin assistant or somebody who acts in that role, can possibly help focus and the attention, and then kind of switch back and forth between the host and the guest. So that's a very good point, Prabhu. I like it. I think
yeah.
there are yeah, we have a comment from Govind. Yeah, actually Govind has got an interesting comment. We'll be taking some comments also, dear listeners. Please share your comments. One thing he mentions is people walk around, which distracts audience when they are especially on the phone. Pretty much, they take it when they are walking, or when they are just simply in their home premises. They are just using the phone, looking at the video, but then they are showing everything else in their home rather than focusing on their conversation, because they're multitasking. So that's the point, Govind. Thank you, Govind, for your comment there. Right? Okay.
Yeah, that normally happens when you are in, mostly when you are in a office meeting or more a casual networking session, and sometimes if you have not forewarned your family members or other people where you're living, then they tend to be in their normal self, and sometimes it kind of will spoil the background or
Sure.
the image you are trying to convey.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that's a good point. You know what? Thanks to Govind for bringing that up, because what I think is it's a distraction, because your thought process is broken there. One
Yeah.
thing is that goes well with the virtual background. So, Prabhu, I mean, I know we both are proponents of virtual background in some cases, as long as the technology tool allows us, and it doesn't really matter, because sometimes the applications, some of them, the virtual background is very easy. You just put an image and then make sure you, either it's your branding or some whatever thing in the back, you can do that. But there are folks I've seen where they use some kind of moving image or a cluttery image, lots of very jazzy background, which is a total distraction, and like a fish moving and things like that, like in an aquarium scene, right? Like it's a screensaver. That's too distracting for me.
Yeah, normally what happens is when you are trying to select the background, they want it to be very subtle, and also preferably that will blend in with they want with the green screen, so that you can put any kind of a virtual image there, or sometimes it could be your company logo.
Right.
I have attended a lot of our company sessions with our company logo or a product logo, like that kind of indirectly, because the virtual meeting or these kind of webinars which you conduct, sometimes it is there to be preserved for a couple of months or a couple of years. So it goes as a record. And it can be played and replayed multiple times. So it's always good idea to have your own brand or your own company image or product brand as a background, so that it conveys the right product positioning and other thing.
Okay, so what we did was we started with the individual thing on how to conduct yourself, right, in terms of being prepared and dress codes and everything. And then the second thing is make sure your mic is muted and stuff like that. Make sure you are taking the call from a good environment where there is less noisy, and mute yourself. Okay. And one thing on that as a meeting coordinator, there's one thing I've seen in virtual learning. Let me slightly a little bit digress here. If you are attending some training sessions, I've seen it worked in my school that I just recently. If you're going to speak up something and say, right, you can't just like that unmute yourself and talk. They expect you to raise your hand, not raise your hand here like this, raise your virtual hand. There are the tools which is in the tools that which provides that feature. So the coordinator, yes, since we are talking about the meeting coordinator and the facilitator, right, they are admin. They just look at the number of hands and then they pick people, so that the same person does not get called multiple times, and it's equally balanced. So because we are catering to you as an attendee, we are catering to you as a coordinator, so we are catering to you as an administrator. So they've got each have a role to play in this. What do you think, Prabhu?
Yeah, actually, that is true. Otherwise, what happens is some people are very vocal and they pitch in very immediately. That comes naturally to them, and a lot of other people they need to be called out or given a chance round robin. It happened one of the recent meetings I attended. There are about 20-25 people, about only a handful of them, 6 or 7 people continuously kept on participating because they like to talk, but the moderator had to finally pitch in and say, hey, let us give a chance to other people and let them also let us get their views also. So the basic etiquette when attending these kind of meetings is, let us if you wait for the moderator to give that signal or communicate to the other attendees, or sometimes it's good you feel somebody is dominating continuously, you give the cue and say, hey, I think we should hear from other people also, so that people get the message.
Yeah, I think
not to be rude, but very politely give that message to them.
Sorry to interrupt. This could happen where people talking over each other, especially what I was going to say is the latency, because it happens that even though we are doing like a seamless frequency, it so happens that there are, due to network bandwidth constraints, it could be there'll be some overlap. So you got to pay attention to. It's okay once or twice, it's okay. And one thing which I learned, which I read in the article, is don't hog the meeting.
Yes.
So
and
in this
giving
case,
a space for other people to talk is again it's a good listening skill, and also it's a good leadership quality. And if you find people, somebody is about to tell an opinion, and somebody overpowers and puts his opinion above the other person, I think we should intervene and tell the person, say, hey, let us give a chance to so and so, because he has been waiting and for his chance, and he's not getting his chance to talk.
yeah.
So that it shows your leadership quality also.
Correct. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned about the leadership quality. I mean, it's not like whoever speaks the most is the leader. There are
Yes.
people who are less spoken, meaning in the sense who doesn't speak that much. People speak about them, so they are more speaking about that leadership. But the thing is, they are very effective in the choice of words in short sentences and very effective to the point. And then they
Yes.
say, this is what I am saying because of this reason. If we don't do this, this is the effect of that. You see what I'm saying? This
Yes.
is
Yes.
my comment. Why I'm saying this comment is due to my experience. If we do not do this, this is what I have seen happen. So you are trying to tell a story within that 1 minute, 2 minute time frame that you get. So that's something we all develop and build as leadership qualities. So thanks for bringing that up. And that reminds me, Prabhu.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've seen. I don't want to mention the leader's name, but it said if a person is not contributing to the meeting, okay, they can leave.
Yes.
Point number one.
Mm-hmm.
Point number two, if the person do not invite too many people to the meeting, if you know for sure they are not going to be a total value addition to the meeting, even now, because it's so easy right now. Earlier, the conference room is small, you have got like 6 people, 10 people. Now, oh, it's a virtual meeting, I'll blast it to 200 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please do not, they say, the experts say, industry experts, I'm no expert, I'm just saying, do not invite too many people you can handle. And not everybody is in that there are two things. Even if the situation demands that you got to invite, there could be only a few panelists, and each of the panelists has got something to do. What do you think about that, Prabhu?
Yes. That's a very good idea, to limit the number of participants or panelists, and also have discuss with them prior, with a prior notice, what are the topics each of them would cover, so that they don't end up covering the same topic. And from the panelists aspect, it's a good always to take notes, what other speakers or other panelists have talked about. Take cues from that, so that they don't repeat the thing, and only value add the points which are not covered by the earlier speakers. And that way, sometimes we might get lucky to be as a panelist speaker, first few speakers. Sometimes we might get called in late, but it's good to keep a notepad and take notes, and also keep a tab of proper titles and names of the other panelists, or with proper salutations, so that you don't misspell or wrongly address somebody, because that gets too personal, and it is a record on the record for the show, so, or for the meeting, or for the event you're participating. And it's a good ethic to do that, and recap whatever other people have told, and mention your value add. Yeah,
Sure.
that's the point I wanted to
So
mention.
to prove that's an example. So, Mr. Prabhu, this is what you mentioned about taking notes and then remember the names of the people who are in the panel so that you can address by the name. So I would like to add something to that, which is you focus on the meeting because that's where you're being called, and you can always build on somebody that the panelist who has spoken earlier. So that's another thing. And the second thing also, since we are covering the topic right now as a organizer or the meeting coordinator, your job is to balance so that everybody gets an equal chance. And we also talked about when you get a chance, here is what you just say your points and then open it up for any questions and things like that, right? So those are the things that comes to our mind as a leadership qualities, right? Okay. And just make sure at the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, we have some actionable items out of the meeting and also a sense of accomplishment, because everybody is different, everybody is in a different time zone. That's another complicating factor for this. So you got to make sure we accommodate all those things in this current pandemic situation, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when we slowly we are moving from individual to the meeting coordinator, facilitator, to the event host and guest. So why don't we just a little bit double click and deep dive on this, right? Once again, I just wanted to do a short interrupt here before we move on. Dear listeners, we are listening to itsdiff leadership series right now, and this is being brought to you something new. We are trying to just showcase some of the experience that we have learned, and also we wanted to learn from your experience. All right. So today's the topic is going to be on the what we have been hearing in the last minutes is on the virtual meeting, as in what are the etiquettes that, and we are planning for a couple of meeting series on remote working, and I've got a big bucket list. If in case you have good ideas in terms of some topics and also some speakers, please do not hesitate to reach out to us at itsdiff@gmail.com. itsdiff@gmail.com. I'll punch it in here. And also you can connect with me on the Facebook page. And also if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, please put your comments also and share it with your friends. You can even do a watch party, because our goal between Prabhu and myself is to, whatever we learned, we just wanted to share this. All right. So Prabhu, let's move on to if you are in a situation of being an organizer where you are putting a panel together. And so what are the things we need to do?
Yeah, there are a lot of do's and don'ts we have to keep in mind as an organizer. The people might be in different time zones, and it's a good idea to connect a couple of hours before the show or before the event and coordinate with them what kind of technical help they have, whether they have they are aware of how to set up the whole meeting, how to set up the background, do they need any help, and if they are really senior persons, a lot of times it's not necessary everybody is tech savvy, but they might be good speakers and they will be subject matter expert. So if they are local or even if they are international or in other states, it's a good idea to, if go there, have somebody physically go there and help them with the setup, so that they don't. Sometimes they might feel shy and they might not tell us that they need help. It's our mandate to make sure they feel comfortable, because it is our show. We are the host. We have to make them comfortable and get everything ready. It is like before a music show, you do the sound check and make the whole band and the singers in sync with the musical and the broadcast equipment ready. So it's a similar way, and get them ready, and also there are a couple of things, a couple of points I have thought about, like if you have enough time and you are going to market or host the meeting a couple of weeks or a couple of days later, it's a good idea to kind of get the right information or background, get a good high resolution image about the VIP guest or the speaker or the panelist, and put that in your marketing material, flash it in your social media, flash it in your literature newsletters, and especially right now, both professional and other social organization, they use a lot of like Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, and other social media. It's good to test all these material, whether it's a preview video. Sometimes it's a good idea to get a preview video, so to get more attention or more traction for the meeting and the show. And if you are giving a URL, it's good to test whether the URL is working. If you are giving a QR code, test it yourself before it goes out in the public, before it goes to the panel members or the other participants, and also run it through the speaker or the panelists, or if you are inviting a sponsor for your show who has been supporting your organization or your company, it's good to run the whole thing with them so that they are comfortable what they are going to see on the screen or what they are going to hear, and uh, like make it as much as possible seamless so that there are no hiccups during the show, and make it a pleasant one for everybody.
Yeah, I think very good points, and I've noted a few of them, and I would like to add from my side. It's kind of interesting because in my MBA, I did advanced marketing as my specialization, and now recently at the HBS, I did product marketing. Especially last week, I just got through one of the Harvard University course. The reason I'm saying is there's so much of learning, and maybe I just said I should have done it like 15 years ago. But anyway, nevertheless, learning is something where nobody can steal from anybody. It is something, it grows and grows. There's a Sanskrit sloka I remember, which always says that a thief cannot steal away from you. You don't need to split it with your brethren, as because it's ancestral property, and you don't need to pay taxes for how much you know. And this is vidya, as they say, is something, the learning is something where it just develops and leaps and bounds as you practice it, right? So the reason I'm saying it, when you mentioned about the dry run, totally, you got to make sure. One of the things I learned is, if you are going to have the guest join on a phone, test on the phone.
Yes.
Don't test on the phone when the guest is going to be joining on an iPad or on the laptop. So that's one thing I learned is, you were going to do the dry run, please do the dry run, and do it in such a way that the exact device and the place where they are going to do. Because you know what, people will be wondering, why are we talking all this down? Because it's as Rajesh Shetty in one of the leadership series that the meeting that I did on his 6 Foot Under book, which I happened to review, he said, it's not the rule changed when you come back, it's the game itself changed.
Yeah.
The game changed. So we got to be prepared. Who knows, the next couple of months and whatever, the future is going to be all virtual meeting, because you're cutting down the cost. Yeah, it's easier, you get a lot of time on your plate and things like that. So do the dry run with the guest, and do all the testing, as you said very rightly, that is super important. And make sure the branding from a marketing perspective is good. And then you mentioned about publicity, because I would like to touch on that for the next couple of minutes. Okay, dear listeners, if you have any comments, please feel free to punch in here. We would like to hear for your comments as well. And thanks for joining once again. This is itsdiff show, and Prabhu Venkatesh Subramanian is here, and this is Srinivasa from itsdiff. So we would like to just share what we know. Okay, so the thing that I was talking about is the organization, which like a product placement, a product that you are trying to do or promote, or you're getting somebody to invite a panelist of doctors and educationists, right? And or no matter what, okay, tell them, use their communication vehicle and get this message that there is a show coming up. This is an informative show, please. And then do some mailers. So just publicize that event. That's point number one. Okay. Second thing is, once when the event is over, Prabhu, What I've learned is send out a mailer about, hey, this is what happened. In case you missed it, here is how to watch it, because this is super important, because you don't take it for granted. Because I did on Facebook Live, I did on YouTube Live. I think people will they are following me, and then they'll get everything. What I found in the past, I'm talking about even before the COVID-19 situation, there are a lot of people who they say maybe you missed it, and also they do a recap. So my learnings is before, during, after. So we are trying to cover all this. Before, publicize well, do the testing and stuff like that, and use the marketing vehicle, whatever that is, and then communicate about and how to watch how to listen to your presentation and everything. During, we talked about it, Prabhu. And then
Yeah.
after this, how to catch up with the show in case you missed it, and then so that if there is any questions and comments and things like that, it's super useful, because I have seen that working in the industry, in media, not necessarily for selling a product. It's educative in nature. It's informative in nature. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are one or two more points I want to add during the show.
Sure.
Especially if you have a very senior person or a VIP or a guest whom you value the most come into your show. It's always a good idea to have their part finish upfront. If you have other agenda items being planned for your meeting, so that they know when the turn comes, and they don't keep waiting, and they lose the patience. Sometimes due to various reasons, your show or the meeting might get delayed due to technical difficulties or other participants not being ready. So a lot of times then it gives a poor image about your company or your organization, or it's about it has a dip in your branding very much. And when they are on the show, I think it's always a good idea to allow them to talk, because they are our guest, and we will always have our chance to talk about our organization and our product or our thing at a later stage. But in their time is there, it's their time. Give their space. Don't interrupt. And if they we wait for their cues and work with them beforehand, whether you what format you want to follow, whether you will be allowing questions during the show, or questions need to be sent ahead of time to the panelists, which will be moderated and asked by the host, which can be you or somebody else, and or are allowing online questions which they are also seeing and responding to, or somebody from your side is taking those questions and um, uh, giving it to the speaker or the VIP guest, so that they have a pleasant experience. And ask them whether they would like to have a recording of the show. In what format do they need it, in a USB stick, or whether they want it as a link? Because a lot of times they might want to put it in their website, or add it to their portfolio of items in their speaker list of speeches they have made. So it is a value add. Both, it's a memory they would like to carry.
Yeah, I think it's a very well said, Prabhu, because it's like going the extra mile. You know what I mean? You're doing a lot of prep. You're organizing this event. The guest is giving the time, right? You are the host, so you better have to have some kind of an engagement model. This is what they say, engagement model, and say, okay, here is a presentation you are going to deliver, give it to us. See, that's another thing as part of preparatory. When we I don't want to miss it out. Like, if there is going to be a presentation, make sure you test that presentation before, or get a copy of that yourself, so that way you don't need to totally rely on, okay, the guest will bring the presentation, so you don't need to worry about anything. Just simply just turn it on, and they will share what if it doesn't work, right? So that's point number one. Point number two, Prabhu, is that you talked about questions.
Yes.
So the questions, there are multiple ways. I would like to even pull in the audience here as well. There are people who takes questions every 10 minutes and then say, for example, if it's a 1 hour presentation, and say, do you have any questions? And I would like to answer on the topic, because it's fresh in their mind. So they could just simply answer that. Or some people and say, I would like to finish my 40 minutes presentation, and then 20 minutes, I'm going to open it up for questions. It works and it doesn't work, because this is the knack of meeting, part of the etiquette and part of the leadership thing. Because if you don't allow them to ask questions, they might forget. They will not be. They will be less interested. Second thing is, suppose if you allow them to ask questions and you ought to meter that. When I say meter, that means like a 2 questions, 3 questions, so that you watch your time and then say, okay, like, yeah, we are 45 minutes into the game. And then, you know what, I can just go for another 15 minutes. And then maybe I could take some questions. Okay, that's true. The third thing is super important, which something I've seen the guys do very well, is watching the chat. Yeah. So that look at the chat, look at the messages in the chat. The folks are discussing in some tools. In the virtual meeting, there are people who discuss about various topics, and then the admin, again, the responsibility goes with the admin. I can't tell the guest to look at it. Yes, I can't tell the host to look at it. I will nominate a person as admin whose whole responsibility is playing the role. He or she is playing the role. Look at the chat, bring that questions to the upfront, and then say, we have some questions, and are you okay to take these questions, right? Yeah. So that's something is very good. And then one other point, Prabhu, that you mentioned, which is interesting, is agree upfront with the guest. Yes. He or she is going to share the presentation at the end of the show. So that way, the focus will be on the presentation rather than people start taking notes and getting distracted and things like that, and say, hey, don't worry, we'll be sharing it. We'll be posting it here, and make sure you follow through. And that's a very brilliant point that you mentioned, is you put it in your company's website or organization website. So it's available as a mark of record. Yes. So that's pretty good. Very good.
And okay. One more from a speaker's perspective is, if you have a call for action, if you're asking people to contact you for something, it's a good thing to announce what is the email address, or what is the Facebook page, or what is the Twitter handle, or your phone number, or website. All this information could be either shared by the speaker verbally, or on top of it, there could be a slide that could be shared by the person hosting the meeting, so that the call for action happens, and they get enough questions and follow-up emails to the show, as well as to the speech. So that way, sometimes the feedback could be in private, and it's a good method to improve the value of the show, as well as value of what we are offering to the audience.
And thanks for plugging that, because I just did that right now. itsdiff@gmail.com. That's the thing to contact. Itsdiff me, Srinivasa. And then if you want feature a speaker, we would like to talk about that. And also, if you have some good content that you want us to do as part of itsdiff leadership series, we would be happy to do it. Once again, this is how you can reach. You can also reach it through itsdiff page. Please like our Facebook page, and also our channel is named Tamil Audiobooks and also itsdiff. So we do have lots of playlists there. You can check our leadership series. More recently, thanks, Prabhu. More recently, we had Dr. Prasad Kaipa, a CEO and executive coach. We did a session on basically how to be a smart leader and how to go from smart to wise, and igniting the inner genius. We did, and also we talked to Rajesh Shetty. I mean, you see tons of presentations there. Actually, that's a good point. At the end of the presentation, what is the action item? Call to action is go check. If you are interested in some of these, you can just go and check those presentations. So that's a very, very good point that you mentioned. And also, thanks, dear listeners, for that. And also, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay, and like our page.
I recently observed in one of the shows you hosted, Mr. Mani Krishnan from Shasta Foods I observed him as well as you announce his email ID at the end of the show, which I think I was reviewing the number of views that video was getting, almost 1,800 views in 2 days. So it was how could in a COVID type of situation, how the online sales and online delivery of the model is going to work. I think one of the intents, Mr. Krishnan was suggesting, or people could write to him if they have products or from the different rural communities and other things. That's a I have observed in some of his earlier speeches also.
Sure.
He's very open-handed at doing that. And
it's more
as a
like
host, you did a very good job of doing or highlighting that point, and I wanted to bring to your notice. And this is another point that you want to, if you are a host, it's good thing to go back and review any of the past sessions the celebrities or your participants in the panelists would have attended, what they have covered in some of the other meetings. Understand what are the thought processes they have, so that you could bring in those anecdotes or those things in your talk show or the meeting. And I observed that you did that with Mr. Rajesh Shetty's interview a couple of a week back on the book review you did with him.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to tell that I learn every day, every show we learn from mistakes. And of course, if watching this show, whichever part of the world you are in, and if you have any comments and suggestions to improve the efficiency, that I would like it, because this is what I remember Mahatma Gandhi saying, that the process justifies the end. It's not the, as everybody was saying, do whatever you need, just get to the end. No, the process counts. And unless you have a clear process in terms of doing anything for that matter, even conducting a virtual meeting, organizing the meeting, publicizing, marketing the meeting, follow through, feedback, and then you need to have a process so that you can go back to the process and refine the process, learn your mistakes. As in Amazon, they always say, what is that you do? Pick some initiatives, form a team, get the project, fail fast, learn, and then learn from it and then do it. Not all projects are successful. The reason I'm saying it, process is super important. So for the one process that we are talking about is go back to your previous meeting and then learn what is that you learned, and also be open like a parachute. It works when it is open. So totally thank you, Prabhu, for that insight, because it's very important for us to know. So I think fairly we have been talking about in this etiquette for virtual meeting. We started our discussion as a quick summary. We talked about individual, how they can conduct themselves as a mark of respect to the organizer and the coordinator, and especially testing various things, your mic, your video, attending from a less noise location, focusing on the presentation, muting yourself. We talked about it. We switched to the second, which is if you are the organizer, you are the, make sure there is a coordinator, and if you are the coordinator, you make sure your job is to make sure focus on the agenda, stick to the agenda, and then jump from one host to the other host seamlessly, and make sure that everybody takes their turn and things like that. If you are an admin, please make sure that you focus on the chat and make sure that there's no disturbance. Make sure you mute everybody so that the coordinator or facilitator can focus on that. So we talked about that. Then we moved on to the organizer of the event. Is how do you take care of the pre-meeting, before the publicity, the getting the dry run, the testing and everything. Then you talked about the during the meeting, what are the things that you need to do as a markup checklist, as a process. And then you do post meeting, what is that you need to do. Okay, so now we are into this discussion about almost 56 minutes. I do have one small topic to cover. Please go ahead, let you comment on this, and then I will say that, which is
so it would be a good idea to basically review what you have done during the show, and also to ask any other questions or topics you might have left out with the audience. And sometimes good time check is very important, because you don't want to exceed the time allotted to you and step into somebody else's time schedule. And keeping slot to the point is always a good preparation point.
Yeah, it's
I
more
think.
like basically it's important to keep up with the time and don't lose the audience, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, we are all working too much right now, especially with no driving, nothing. Everybody is putting not just 8 hours or 10 hours, they are putting 14 hours, because pretty much not that they are bored, it's like there's so much of work and so much of coordination, especially. So since you mentioned, I would like to solicit information, feedback from the audience of this particular program. Please do reach out to us at itsdiff@gmail.com and send us your comments, feedback on topics, speakers, and stuff so that we can review. And I would like to get to the remote working on what are the things that we need to do, focus especially on how to be effective. And there is also something on project management we have lined up. So we will be doing it. If you guys are game, we have the time. It's like because most of the time, we are available to make sure that this is something we learn, we care, we share. That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Last point I wanted to share, Prabhu, is one thing.
Hmm.
I will touch it, but the details will come in the next show. Business analytics. You mentioned it already. You said
Yes.
1,500 views and like that. So like that, everybody has to know, as part of the learning experience, to see what worked, what did not work. For that, we need data. Now,
Yes.
everything is machine learning, everything is artificial intelligence, everything is about data analytics. So it is very important to know which channel works for us, how the
Yes.
marketing works for us. I mean, this is slightly different than the etiquette of during the meeting, but we wanted to just leave some food for thought for data listeners with you so that we can pick it up at a later time. Once again, this is an itsdiff production. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for
Good.
joining.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Namaste.
okay, good. Thank you. Namaste. And dear listeners, thank you so much for joining. And we will catch up. It's tip@gmail.com. And if you like it, please do a watch party, share it with a lot of people. And then we'll catch up in the next series. Once again, this is Srinivasa signing off from It's Tip. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Stay safe and maintain social distance. And yep, take care.